one wall at a time, but now the new city. Okay, the new city, as we showed before, was the city, the highest part on the map that we looked at. That was the most recent addition to Yerushalayim. And because of the position that they had, the high position, the siege machines, the catapults, they were able to throw a barrage of stones and whatnot into the city, causing much difficulty. We all know what was going on in Eretz Yisrael this past year when missiles and whatnot were raining over certain communities in Eretz Yisrael. The difficulties are just too difficult even to describe, and so you can't really live that way. It's extremely difficult. And eventually, slowly but surely, moved inch to inch closer until an attack of the old city proper. I'm running through it quickly, but hopefully you have it in front of you and it's pretty clear. And so after utilizing starvation and siege, he does, slowly but surely, like I mentioned, start to breach the walls, and eventually, over time, is able to penetrate one wall after another. By the time that we get into the month of Tammuz, he's penetrated the fortress of Antonia, which sits atop Temple Mount. The road to the Beis HaMikdash is proper, and additional fortifications were breached on the 17th of Tammuz. So now, the date that we're going to begin tomorrow is the period for sure during the second Beis HaMikdash, when the fortifications of the Har HaBayis were breached. It's a machlokes, Bavli and Rishon, as we mentioned in the last class, as to whether the first Beis HaMikdash was also on the 17th of Tammuz, or really the 9th of Tammuz. But we know that it's this period of time when the walls of the Har HaBayis are first destroyed, and then 3 weeks later, after a desperate fight for the Temple Mount itself, the Beis HaMikdash is towards the end of the 9th of Av. A fire begins to burn in the Beis HaMikdash. It's uncontrollable. All efforts to put it out were unsuccessful. And we actually commemorate the fast on the 9th of Av, even though most of the burning took place on the 10th of Av, because we start when the burning began. And even though when Tisha B'Av began, everything was still up in the air, it wasn't clear what the outcome would be, but because the burning started on Tisha B'Av and the pain was most acute, the very first sign of fire, of destruction, that happened on Tisha B'Av proper. Because that occurred, that's the image that we captured, so to speak. That's what we retain with us, and that's when we begin our mourning. But we also continue to act in a form of mourning into the 10th of Av, which is why we don't eat meat or drink wine or cut our hair or any of those things until midday on the 10th of Av in most years, unless, of course, the 10th of Av is a nidcha, and that Tisha gets pushed off a day. But under normal circumstances like this year, we won't do it until Thursday midday, because of the fact that the 10th of Av is also, unfortunately, a day of destruction. The story does not end over there. The fighting in Yerushalayim continues, and as we see on the last slide over here, Titus eventually not only orders the city to be destroyed, the walls, but over 1 million Jews are estimated to have died during the siege. Because many Jews, let's keep in mind that when the fighting was going on to the north, and people were losing those battles, a number of them made their way down to the south. And so by the end, by Elul of that year, everything, the entire city of Yerushalayim had been captured. The Beis HaMikdash had already been destroyed. The entire city was in Roman hands, and the city would remain in Roman hands for quite some time. There was a small period of rebellion and independence during the period of Bar Kokhba. It took place about 65 years afterwards. But outside of that, it remained in Roman hands until Rome itself crumbled and fell apart a few centuries after that. So this really represents a long period of challenge. There was a time when we had very little autonomy, a lot of foreign control, never quite the glory or glamour as we talked about at the beginning as the period of the first Beis HaMikdash, but it was a Beis HaMikdash. And there was autonomy. At some point, it was our land. We were able to live as Jews. One of the saddest aspects of the entire story is that towards the end, when we needed to come together, and we needed to put those differences aside, and we needed to say to ourselves that we have to unify for the benefit of Klal Yisrael, to somehow preserve the Beis HaMikdash and everything that it stood for, we weren't able to do it until the very end. And because of that, because of other factors as well, the Gemara tells us that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. Sorry.
Amen.